Christy, and I am just so excited to have Craig and Julie here. I have to say that when I met Craig, it was quite some time ago. He is a Shining Light sibling, as I don't think your bio even mentions that, but you're a Shining Light sibling twice over, and you were fascinated by the afterlife. I think you were having a lot of spiritual experiences at the time and trying to qualify them and make sense of what was happening. And I was so excited that he wanted to interview parents from Helping Parents Heal to tell a little bit more about how we move forward and heal after the transition of a child. And I think that one of the things that Craig, with his documentary, wanted to do was to be able to find parents who had gone down that healing path and who had actually been able to see the end of the tunnel. And it's so amazing to me that that documentary has reached so many parents throughout the world and has helped so many parents, but also has led them to Helping Parents Heal, which is something that I feel very grateful for. And I also was excited to be able to learn more about Julie, which was a little bit after the documentary came out, because she kind of is emblematic of what a healing journey can be like if you are able to connect with your child in spirit as quickly as possible. And I think that this happened for Julie almost right away. And what we're going to do today is to start by speaking with Julie and just asking her a few questions. So please join me in welcoming Julie McMahon up here with me. Space between us. And this is unusual to do for Unity. Normally we do this standing up at the podium, but I think this is much more intimate. But Julie's beautiful son, Dakota, also transitioned, like all of our children have transitioned. And it happened a few months before she met Craig, which was pretty amazing because she was already on the road to healing and doing so well. And especially spending a lot of time with Dakota and spending a lot of time learning about this new normal, which is not ever something that we want to do. We would never ever say that this is what our lives are supposed to be like. But once we do have something like this happen in our lives, isn't it wonderful to be able to understand that there's more, understand that there's no death, and be able to understand that all of our kids are friends. And every time that I meet a new mom, I know that these kids have brought us together, which I feel very, very grateful for. And so having Julie in our tribe and being able to see her in the Life to Afterlife series, which was so beautiful. She's got this incredible piece about her, which I never have because I'm always running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but she is so calm and so... Anyway, I just want to let you guys understand a little bit about Julie before we go into more questions with Craig, and then also talk about some very deep concepts that they have brought with them today that I think all of you will be thrilled to hear about. So, first of all, let's start with you. And I would love to hear, I mean, obviously we've talked about Dakota. Could you tell us about your special relationship with Dakota and what he was like here in the physical? I'm passing you this.
Okay. So Dakota, age 19 years old, beautiful blonde hair, blue eyes, sunshine, heart, charismatic, rowdy, unruly teenager, and beginning to be an adult. So the interesting thing about Dakota was he decided to transition, or the moment happened right as childhood ends at the age of 19. So from 20 on, you become an adult. So I was able to be blessed to have a child, to live a full childhood and choose not to be an adult. So the moment that Dakota, our relationship was, looking back on it, extremely tight, extremely compact, extremely memorable. And I think that's what happens to these children that go to the other side relatively early or courageously before us, is that they leave us with tremendous memories, gifts that unpack the rest of our lifetime. So when we can understand that they were the biggest gift of our life, of course, we knew that when they were here, they were hugging us. We knew that when they would walk into a room and go, Mom, come here, and throw their arms around you. You just know that that is something that cannot ever disappear. It cannot go away. It cannot be erased. It cannot be taken from you. So if I were to describe Dakota, he is that embrace, that sunshine on a Sunday morning. He is the hope that brought everybody to this space. And so of course the transition of Dakota is the bigger picture. That is the whole reason that we are here living this life. It's the very moment that brings us all together. And so that's who he is to me, before the human piece, before he became the ginormous bridge to the afterlife.
That's a beautiful description, and I think that we can all find our own children in that description, because all of our kids, I believe that all of our kids are very special. They all got everything that they needed to do done before they transitioned. They graduated and went home. We're still in school. This is a very difficult school. The Earth School is the hardest one that anyone can ever experience. But I also think that having these incredible guides on the other side, these children that are so loving, so all-encompassing, so vibrant, is something that benefits all of us if we allow it to. If we don't allow ourselves to feel their love and to be able to know that they're still with us, our lives are much smaller and less important. And when we do allow them to be a part of our lives expand in ways that no one could have ever imagined. So I've heard you explain Dakota's passing and what happened to you during that passing, which was, for me, a shared death experience, kind of similar to what happened with Morgan. Could you maybe describe that to everyone here? Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I get the phone call on a day that I was planting white flowers in my yard with his older brother. His older brother, who was too busy at the age of 6 years older than Dakota, happened to be with me on that exact day. So we're planting flowers, and I finish and I go inside to wash my hands, and I get the phone call. And right before the phone rang, I literally threw up. Like, the energy, before I even knew, hit me, I threw up. And I was like, I'm not sick. I felt that so strange. But then the phone call came after, and it was the call that my son's not breathing. And Dakota was, interestingly enough, something that I always checked on to be breathing when he was living. I always want to make sure that kid was breathing. So when we talk about the synchronicities, that everything is tied together, when you look back on it, you go, well, that was the first words that I actually heard, was that he wasn't breathing. So upon getting to his apartment, and realizing that there's cops and there's commotion and there's chaos in my world, suddenly, tragically, out of the blue, I kept breathing. Like I remember, and I had asked for 100,000 angels to come with me, not just one. I asked for 100,000. And sure enough, I felt that there was this side and that side of angels, but they stood with me. And so I felt expanded, and I also felt very still and very small. So even getting to the steps to go up to his apartment where he was going to be laid out before me, I somehow at that moment was very aware of what was happening in my reality. And yet it was so big that I actually found myself at a perspective outside of my body because it was too big. I couldn't contain it inside me. So somehow with that heart, because I had faith. I mean, I had practiced the philosophy of Buddhism. So I had some tools to but I still couldn't grasp the shatter of my reality at that moment. So as the higher perspective, I started to realize that I'm watching my body walk up the steps, being prepared. And I'm a registered nurse also. So I didn't know what I was going to see because this child, I didn't go a day without talking to him, not one single day. And we had conversations that were bigger than looking back on it, I realized were preparation maybe of some sort. But when I went in and I saw him laid before me, I realized that I could see a baby, I could see Dakota, and I could see like the man of God or Jesus or the full creation of what life is. And I chose to kind of be out of my body. It was a better place to be. But at the same time, my physical body needed to go up, and I had nothing but reverence at the feet of this child. Reverence and gratitude. I felt unimportant in a moment like that. And believe me, it shocked me because this is my entire world, part of the biggest piece of my life that I could have ever imagined. So in that moment of gratitude, which is a very high vibrational state to be in, when there's a transition of someone that you love. So I just knelt before him and I just started saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I almost didn't know how to touch him, and my hands even shaking, remembering it, because I was aware of what he was to me in that moment. And I chose to hold on to that. When I didn't feel my body, I didn't even know who I was. I didn't know what I had just eaten or what I had last done. I didn't even know what I was going to do next. But I was literally holding on to that moment of pure love. And it was in that fraction of a moment when you don't know how you're going to react. We play out these scenarios in different conversations and in different things, like what would you do in this situation? What would you do in that? And it proved to me that in this lifetime, the one thing I did do was create bonds with another human being that were greater than myself. And so when people ask me, how did you do that, or why did you do that? It was in the state of an oblivion, like your whole world is shattered. And I just looked back and realized I had done that right. I had loved with all of my soul. And I knew that someone describes it like this: Julie must have just put on her backpack and was going to follow Dakota where he was going to go. And I knew that where he went, it was real. Like, there's no way I could imagine not this kid. So I was going to find everything I could about life to afterlife. And that's literally, and of course, my body took an impact. I peed blood. It was that real. I mean, the aftermath of that moment, I was a shell of a human being, but my faith, my heart, my love, I was just focused on what he meant as far as what loving another outside yourself is. And that was the way that my experience unfolded. is through what I refer to as a very beautiful love story. So one of the things that I choose to resonate in this field of consciousness when I share my story is that the grief, the traditional grief process, just flip it upside down. And I started off with accepting my son's much needed, like I trusted Dakota. I trusted that soul when we had conversations. I trusted his choices. I watched him grow and unfold, and I allowed him to be the free soul that he was. So I trusted this must be a reason that he had to go to the next place.
It's absolutely beautiful. So he had to graduate before you did, but at the same time, this was something that you decided, the two of you, before we ever came here. We've decided this with our children. And I think it's so amazing to hear that you were able to accept this immediately. It's rare to find anybody like you. But I also think that this acceptance is something that is incredibly healing, knowing that they are so good. Dakota is so good now. He's doing things that he could never do here on Earth, and he's with incredible people. And of course, we would rather have them here. And I think it's really important to say that all the time, because I don't ever want anybody to think that this is a fun journey that we're on at all. But we're learning the most that we can in a very, very difficult situation. And I think it's so incredibly healing to hear stories like Julie's so that we can understand more about it. Craig might be willing to tell just a little bit about his own experience as a Shining Light sibling. And at that time, these resources really didn't exist as much. They existed, but people didn't talk about them. So being able to know that our kids are okay and being able to read all of the things that are available is just an incredible thing for us. So his transition obviously changed your view, although you were already a Buddhist, about life, death, and spirituality. Could you tell just a little bit about how that changed for you once he transitioned?
Well, the biggest thing is that the phenomenal plane, the fourth dimensional plane and higher, where our souls go when you're not in a physical body, and how to connect with that, how to connect with a soul that's no longer in physical form, was the school that you referenced that I had to learn to do. And in those early days, I struggled, like not understanding why or how the human part wanted to see him again, and yet there's no breaking those bonds that I had. So I had to piece together the human and the soul, because that's what is the troubling part, is our mind wants to say that they're not here. And that's where the ache in the heart comes from, is only when the separation takes full throttle. So I decided to face that first, go after the hardest part of this, which is, am I making this up that I'm getting a sign? Or am I just kind of doing this to soothe myself, or is this real? And the easiest way to handle that biggest struggle is to just drop the doubt and choose to believe. Because you can be in doubt or you can be in faith. And if you just choose to believe what you're given, it's called compounded interest. You're going to get 3 more things that are going to build upon that little mustard seed of faith. So if you can do that, you're going to continue to learn how to communicate and get signs and synchronicities. And then you'll get to the point where they are part of all of your life. I like to say Dakota's in the fabric of my reality now. And that's why if you refer to me as having peace, it's because he's in the air, the walls, and the conversations. He's now merged with the air that I breathe.
And he's that dove that just landed right behind Craig up here. Yes, which is just so beautiful. So these signs that we get never stop. They're never ending, and they're just so beautiful. And I would like to now, if possible, bring Craig up as well. And I think we're going to spread the seats out, otherwise it's going to be a little tight. But what we'll do is just talk a little bit about Craig's experience. And the first thing that I want to do is to maybe talk about, thanks Craig, to talk about how you and Julie first met. Could you just give a little bit of background here?
Well, it's a two-part story, so I'll let her start with the very beginning.
So it was within just a few days of Dakota passing that I find myself back at home. I was a single mom. Of course, he had a brother, but he was already living outside the house, so I was alone in my home, and started to search for something to watch. And I came across Life to Afterlife series and my TV in a dark, cuddled up room, and my heart just beating, and me just sitting with myself. And I watched, which one was the first? There's so many. I have to go back to the very first one I watched.
I
want to talk to the dead. Yes. I want to talk to the dead. So that's a documentary where you actually learn to be a medium yourself. That's the first one I watched. And so I saw Craig and I watched how he was asking and teaching, and I thought, what a brilliant, beautiful soul to put out exactly this kind of thing for all of us that have lost anyone. So I wrote him a letter, and all I did was put my heart into the letter about his brilliance and about how grateful I was that he put out something that I could reach. And I let him know that I had a child that transitioned and how thankful we were for his work and for everything that he did.
Thanks. So
You can give each other a hug if you want to.
I never got the letter.
Oh, it's true.
It's true. I never got the letter, but spirit doesn't stop there. Shortly thereafter, I wasn't really a Facebook person, but there was a friend request, and I don't really do friend requests, but I saw her picture was the first one, the first person. We had no common friends or anything, but I just felt drawn. There's something I need to talk to her about. There's something that I need to. Now he's over here.
Yes, you're so sweet.
So I clicked on it, and next thing I know, we're talking for 6 hours. And we shared everything she told me, because I had already done. Mom, can you hear me? And I had sat with all these wonderful parents, and when I got to know her, I was like, you're just handling it so well. I want to know more about it. So that's when the Awakening documentary came, and we interviewed. But I knew I was in love with her. I'd already seen her. I was already like, I can't say it, but so I tell them about the.
This is harmonious.
So I'm going to go, so through the conversation, the 6-hour conversation, I'm like, I got to interview, I'm going to go down to Tucson, I'm going to get all my camera gear, I'm going to come down and interview because I want to hear your story. And so I brought all my equipment, and go ahead, you know where to go.
So the day he comes to interview, I have this house that has a doorbell like everyone. He's knocking on a side wooden door. A side wooden door that's like way off on the other side of the house, and I'm following this knock on the door. And I open the door and he's standing there with roses, red. And the backstory on that is when Dakota was alive and I was a single mom his whole life, he would say to me, Mom, you gotta get out. You can't just be old and not have anyone in your life. He goes, do you really think they're gonna show up at your door and knock with roses? And when he was alive, I said, without hesitation, that's exactly how it's gonna happen, Dakota. It's gonna happen like that, or it's not gonna happen at all.
So this is not normal Craig. I'm a documentarian. I don't bring flowers, especially red roses, to the subject I'm about to interview. It's rather weird and kind of fresh, and I knew it was not right. But as I was driving to Tucson from Phoenix, there was this, get flowers, okay, get flowers, make sure they're red, get roses. I'm like, oh my, that's too romantic. I barely know her. There was no way I was gonna argue with Divine. You cannot argue. So I pulled up to the front and I got all my equipment out. I don't wanna go to that front door because it has a doorbell. I was told, knock on a door. So I went to another door where there was no doorbell and knocked on the door.
That's how we met.
That's how we met.
That's amazing. And I don't think I've heard this story before, so this is a wonderful thing to hear. But I also think that being able to meet allowed all of us to benefit from both of your spirituality. I wanted to find out from Julie what you think meeting Craig helped you in expanding your own spirituality. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
It's like, how do you go from having tragic and pain to someone that you had been praying for and wanting to have? So that's why it's sort of like a tragic, beautiful love story. And then being able to have conversations with Craig about Dakota in those early moments. Because I had 3 months. I like to say it's always within the first 6 months that you have a capitalized moment with whoever passes over, to have direct communication with them. I mean, they are doing everything they can to let you know that they're there, that they want to communicate, that they're not leaving your side. So when I was unpacking all of that, to have Craig in my life, and at the moment, even though we tell our love story from this position of being married almost 5 years, in those days when he showed up, it wasn't like I knew that was going to be the moment, like that, but it unfolded perfectly that was the moment. But being with Craig and the journey that we are now, I believe that it just amplifies the love and tragedy and the miracles that still can happen to the worst scenario or the worst thing that you find yourself in. I would have never thought that the moment I would meet him would be on the other side of Dakota going and Craig coming in. We like to say it's BC and AC, after Dakota and before Craig, but it's a huge blessing because together we're able to create what we refer to as a vesica in the symbol of eternity. And it's that middle piece that you get in partnership, in harmony, and creating any kind of synergy that just amplifies what you have as an individual.
That is truly beautiful. And I just have to say that I was having lunch with Craig at Pita Jungle, and he said, there's this woman who she has a son who transitioned, and she just has such an incredible story. Is there any way in your experience that she could be so good right now? And I said,
Supposed to be that way.
well,
I'm just kidding.
well, it kind of happened for me. And
Yes, it
I
did.
was told by a lot of people that I was going to have a terrible breakdown, a terrible fall. But I was on the search for other parents who had had this happen because I wanted to be able to talk about Marian and about Chelsea, and I didn't want to, I wanted to talk about the experiences that I was having with them. And I didn't want to have people say, oh, we don't talk about that. That's not something that we talk about. So to hear about Julie, I said, well, yeah, that's possible. That's definitely possible. And here she is. And it is something that happened for Julie. But I would love to go back with you, Craig, and have you tell just a little bit about the passing of your two brothers. I know that this wasn't in the questions that we had planned, But maybe just kind of explain how different it was at that time.
So my brother, he was 18. He died in a car accident in Valdosta, Georgia. I was 9, so I was still kind of halfway in the afterlife, kind of figuring out this planet. How does this work, you know? And my mom sat me down and she said, you know, Carrie has died. You're not going to see him again. And I said, no, I will see him again. He's not gone. So we had this conversation the entire rest of her life. It's just, I'm going to see, he's not dead. There is no such thing. And then we had this ongoing conversation about spirituality throughout our life, ups and downs. And then, of course, my brother, he was in his 40s. He took his own life. So I, you know, then I lost my mom and my dad right away. So I just became, you know, spiritually on a journey. And so that's what's kind of led me to this whole thing that I've been working on.
Well, and I know that during the Life to Afterlife, Mom, Can You Hear Me documentary, Craig was bringing all these kids home with him. And maybe you could tell one experience from having these kids just follow him home or actually just hang out at your house after the filming. Can you think of one? I can think of one if you can't think of one.
Which one?
The one with Lori and her son Garrett.
Oh, where he talked. Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
So I forgot about that one. That one's cool. So a medium, and I can't remember what Jamie's was.
Jamie's one.
Jamie Clark.
Oh,
Well, I'm trying. Is she a Reiki?
she is Reiki, but she's also, yes. Okay.
Well,
And nobody's able to think.
I'm drawing a blank too, and Maggie, but
Maggie.
I can't. Oh, anyway, I decided to enhance, you know, start to develop communication with the loved ones that have passed through, you know, Nikola Tesla's invention with ITC, instrumental transcommunication. So we had Lori Savoy. I don't think Maggie was there. It was just Jamie, the medium. He was holding the energy, helping the communication, and Lori wanted to get with Garrett, right? Garrett, and this voice came. Sorry. Mom, can you hear me? So Garrett was talking to Lori. And we all went, oh my gosh. Garrett's talking to his mom. So from then on, we did more sessions, and sorry.
That's beautiful. So this is where the name of the documentary came from, was Mom, Can You Hear Me? Because this is what they heard through Garrett at that session, and I think it's so beautiful. These kids are just amazing, and that was a perfect title, obviously. So anyway, I would like to know a little bit about how to improve communication with our children in spirit, and I think you guys know a little bit about that. So we have things, oh, it's next to you, okay. So we're going to put the image up on the screen as well.
Can someone do that?
I can do that in just a second. I'm going to pass this over to you for the time being. This is, again, not something that we normally do, but I think I can do it. So let me see. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to go to my desk. No, not my desk. So Finder, there we go. And then,
Okay. Well, I'll just
lots
start
of
talking
questions.
while you guys are doing
Yeah,
that.
go ahead, start talking.
Over the years of doing the documentaries, I was very adamant about bringing this level of communication with our loved ones in the afterlife. And one of the things that really stood out to me was the state of mind of the people that are communicating the most efficiently, This is where Julie and I came to put this together for a talk we did in Australia, which is, maybe you could just briefly. Anyway, if you guys want to take a look at the document. So we have these levels of consciousness, and what I noticed was that if you're in shame or guilt or grief, your level of vibration, your consciousness is vibrating very, very slowly. So when the afterlife, the souls that are in the afterlife want to communicate with you, they have a hard time because it's such a slow vibration. They're vibrating at a much higher frequency. It's kind of like a brick wall. It's kind of like a fog. As you go up a little bit, it becomes less and less of a fog. It becomes crystal clear. So of the ones, like of all the mediums and stuff that I've sat with, we realize that once you are able to get past things like anger, desires, fear, the veil starts to disappear, and the communication. So there's a lot of things that happen once you get into these higher levels of consciousness, and if you can work through all these lower emotions, the communication starts to become crystal clear, and you just bridge the gap. Does anybody do you guys understand how this vibration works? It's just the phenomenon that I started to notice was of the entities that are living in a peace, joy, unconditional love. They're communicating like nothing, like this. The trick is, and that's where Julie can help, is to talk about, okay, look, my child just died. You have to understand, I'm in anger. How in the world am I supposed to get out of this? All I do is think about, these things.
So this, just one little tool that's created has a lot of information on it. Like Craig was saying, the colors represent frequency, vibration, and then emotions are just human experiences of a reaction to our energetic field. So level of consciousness, we have instrumentation now that you can actually measure the vibrational frequency that's a body that's not just the dense matter that you're in right now. So it's the heartbeat has a mechanical pump, but it also has an electrical beat. So does your brain. And what consciousness is when you're not in the body is that pulse still continues beyond the physical realm. So when you think about the emotions that we can experience, it's being able to hold that state. So we dip in and out of emotions all day. But when you work with your emotional states and you start to hold them, your cells of your body start to radiate a frequency state. You know this because each of us have a personality, and each of us we know who our aunt is before she comes down the steps because we know her personality. We can feel her presence before she actually turns the corner and comes into the room. So the thing that I learned with Dakota, and the thing that I always treasured the most raising him and being with him, being with Craig, is the feeling of love, the feeling of forgiveness, the feeling of, even if you upset me, I just want you near me, like I want you in my vibrational space, my heart space. So if we can learn to use the environment that we find ourselves in and create the vibrational state that's on this little tool to be a state that's higher frequency. And what that means is that your cells in your body are holding more light and fluid. You're more flowing and you're more open. So this actual looks like a rectangle, but the way that I show it on the screen is more like a funnel. So these lower frequency states pull you down and in. When you feel shame or you feel guilt or you feel anger, it closes in and pulls you down, and you feel very small and very closed in. The shoulders come in, the heart closes, the mind bows, and you start thinking. But when you can walk with your heart open and you're up towards the heavens, the skies, the higher, you open up and out. The funnel goes out. And when that goes out, your perception to what is larger. You're able to see, feel, connect more. So how you do it, not only do you just be aware of your state, but you have to be able to trust what's given. And this is where I love to tell the story that you can ask for what it is that you need from your kids or anybody. You can ask if you're feeling, you have to know yourself. If you know yourself, then you know what to ask for. But if you're missing them, you want to hear them laugh or you want to feel that frequency, all you got to do is go down, remember them, and you call them in with that loving memory. That's what a memory is. And when you do that, you feel that, you ask for that. And then you got to let it go. This is the little piece. It's written all over bumper stickers. As soon as you ask, you got to receive. And it'll slip in. Spirit slips in when you least expect it. So you got to have faith in yourself. But you got to let go. So like when I first started out, I'd ask for the typical things, like a cardinal. I want a cardinal. I like to tell this story, but it's like, give me a cardinal. Like I want the bird on the tree. But the first way Dakota gave it to me was a big picture on the back of a car that somebody put. They must really love cardinals. They painted it on the back of there. This guy cut me off in the road, and like, and I was just like, oh. But you have to be able to infinite ways for them to answer the request. And if you have a kid like I do, he's gonna find out a way to do it so that you know that it's Dakota doing it and not like, because he always wanted to do things different, So the personality of the person is still the essence of the soul. So allow them, and then laughter and joy and being playful is one of the highest states is joy. So if you can just play a game, even say, I don't know if I'm gonna get it, but I'm gonna ask for something and then allow it to come. The time will start to get smaller, the more the faith gets bigger. That the signs will come almost instantaneously when you actually have absolute faith.
That's absolutely beautiful and such a great way to be able to think about this. I think that everybody should understand that it is a game for them. They're having so much fun doing this. And unfortunately, it's work for us because until we actually get something back from them that we feel is proving to us without a shadow of a doubt that they're there. And if we're asking for a cardinal bird and we get one on the back of the truck, we might not even see it. So being able to recognize those signs, slow down and allow yourselves to see these things happening. It's pretty amazing. But I also would love to be able to talk to you about something else that I think really is stressful for parents thinking about the moment that we transition. Could you tell us a little bit about what your understanding is of the moment that we transition, either Craig or Julie?
Well, of the ones that died and came back, they're a different story. They're usually connected to some tethering of a silver cord, and they may meet loved ones and get to speak to a being of light that tells them they need to go back, and they go back. But of the ones that transition, everybody goes through some type of a healing process, and that is usually, I like to call it like a white room or a decompression chamber. And what they're kind of getting you set up for is going back home, but it's sort of like the birth experience where, wait a second, how do I breathe? How do I move about the cabin? So there's this bit of a disorientation that they go through, and that usually is just a matter of time before they start to figure it, oh, I think I remember how to do all this. So it's a little bit like the birthing experience. And then we're met with our our guides, and we go through life reviews, we look at Akashic records, and we start to move on to what's next, what are we going to do. I'll let Julie add if do you want to add something?
That's beautiful. Yes. So the most important thing of what you're saying, though.
Oh, here, let me. Everybody is met with love. Everybody is met with. I get so scientific sometimes that I forget. All their stress is gone. All their worries are gone. They don't have this clunky body. They're able to move around and do anything they want. So they're actually in a better place than we are. But it just takes a little time for them to get well adjusted and back. A lot of them like to hang around us, but they're always with you, if that makes sense.
Yes, and they can be in multiple places at the same time. They don't have to be hanging out with their parents and kind of bored about all the boring stuff that we're doing. They're in so many places, experiencing so many things. And again, it's all about love. In fact, we have a thumbnail for some of the new YouTube videos that are coming out on one of the talks that you gave, and I think that it says on the thumbnail, it's all about love or something like that, which I think is beautiful. And I know that that's something that you feel is very, very important. But I know we have a little bit of time left. I wanted to ask Julie if Dakota had one message to say to humanity and all of us today. What do you think he would say?
Let me tap into this kid, because he wants to say a lot. Just one. Yeah, I think it's have fun with life and trust the process. Have fun with life and trust the process. It really is that easy.
It's a beautiful message, and I think that that's something that we don't realize as much as we should, that our kids want us to have fun. They want us to be joyful. They want us to move forward and talk about them all the time as well. And also do things in their name and make them proud of us. Make them proud of us, exactly. Obviously, that's not the main goal. The main goal here is to love and to be loved, and to be kind to each other, and to receive kindness as well. And that's one of the hardest things that I think that all of us have to do, is to receive kindness from others. But it's a really huge part of our journey, and it teaches us a lot. But I guess that the two of you, I mean, I think that this is wonderful that Dakota was able to say something. What is your message for humanity?
Humanity. I know that it seems kind of, this crazy world that we're living in. I know that it seems kind of like, how's this going to work out with this planet? But from what the beings of light tell me, it's a process. We get caught up in time, and the light will win, and that we will get there.
We will prevail.
Yes.
At some point, but I think that we're going through a shift right now, as everyone says, and we're seeing the light at the other end of the tunnel. But I think that one of the things that's going to happen is that people will be much, much more open. Oh, there's some questions? Are you? Yes, so please ask questions too. So anyway, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I think that our kids are helping us to be able to get to that point of healing, and ultimately everybody understanding that this is just the new normal, being able to communicate with our beautiful loved ones in spirit. Lisa, come up here, take my place, and ask these questions, okay?
You don't need to take your place, but I will say, I do want to say that both Irene and the Hollihans have been online. I know they were part of Life to Afterlife, so I want to recognize them. And very quickly, We have Tracy, who said that her daughter's name is Dakota. So we have 2 Dakotas here with us today. That's great. I have a question. Would you like to speak? Would you have anything else you'd like to briefly share about suicide? We have a mom whose son recently transitioned.
Yeah. So I had some conversations with my brother in the afterlife. He was the one that took his own life. And, we were raised in Catholicism, so it's supposed to be really, really bad. And it's not really a good idea to commit suicide. You should continue to do everything that you came here to do. You're actually shortening the whole plan of what you're supposed to be here to do. But I will tell you what my brother told me in the afterlife was that there is no judgment. He wasn't judged for it. He knew that he stunted his growth and where he was supposed to go. He's continuing to work on these things, and he may come back to this planet and, do more work. But it's not quite what I was brought into as in the Catholic Church, where if you would, be in hell. He said there is not for him, no hell for suicide, because he said there is no judgment. But he doesn't say it's a good idea to do this. Continue your journey, practice being a perfected soul, raise your vibration and your consciousness to these levels, and try to figure out how to evolve naturally out of here instead of stunting it.
Thank you. Real quickly, Julie, this question's for you, just some clarification. Were you always a nurse and a Buddhist, or did this develop after Dakota transition? And I believe you answered this, but I'll let you.
I was a registered nurse prior, and I was practicing the philosophy of Buddhism. What Dakota's transition brought into my life is the tremendous, absolute, undeniable awareness of the afterlife. And it's funny because I saw Craig McMahon's, when I went to his website, it said life to afterlife expert. And I said, I'm gonna be that. I'm gonna know all there is to know. I'm gonna, whatever that certification is. I've been thrown into the school. So, but that was the piece that was brought into the tools I already had that set me well prepared for the course that I found myself in.
And the next and last 2 questions are, where can they view your series now, Craig? I know it was on Amazon Prime. I'm not real sure where it is now. And we have 34 people in the chat room asking where they could get this chart. So maybe Elizabeth could put it in the files, perhaps, if you'd like to share it with her.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
put it in the box.
She'll put it in the files. So the movies are evolving. So they're right now. There's a platform. It's not just YouTube. There's YouTube movies. It's a lot like Netflix, Amazon, and also it's called YouTube Movies. But pretty much all of them are there. So if you go into YouTube, you put in the search. You could put my name, Craig McMahon, or you could put in Life to Afterlife. But there's also Tubi, which is another wonderful platform. It's a free platform by Fox Studios. And I'm switching to put stuff back onto Amazon, but for right now, I needed to get overseas because the people in Australia said, we don't have your stuff because we don't have Amazon AU. So now we're working on getting more and more content on YouTube Movies, which is not the same as YouTube. Is there any other places? So Amazon, YouTube, Movies, and Tubi. Oh, you just got here all
Yes.
of a sudden.
So I just changed, yes. So Tubi was the first place that I put on Helping Parents Heal. Then I put YouTube because Craig let me know that it was available on YouTube as well. So I guess it's Amazon as well, you said?
They're coming, yeah.
But not
More,
yet.
I think they're just, I had to do some licensing changes here.
So I know that there are so many of the parents of Helping Parents Heal who have seen Life to Afterlife, Mom, can you hear me? One of the things that always amazes me about that documentary is that it's 2.5 hours long, I believe.
Is it? I don't know.
2.5 hours long.
Don't remember.
And everybody that watches it says that they watch every single minute of it, which is really, that's a long.
There is one thing that I'd like to kind of talk to you about.
Oh.
Is a number 2.
Oh. Well, that would be fun. And I know that there are lots and lots of people, I don't know if you're thinking about the same parents, but there are so many parents in Helping Parents Heal or Shining Light Parents, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a lot of fun for a lot of people. And speaking of which, obviously Lisa is probably the first candidate who is sitting next to you there. One of the things about Helping Parents Heal is that's kind of fascinating is that there are so many parents who have become mediums. Obviously, we connect with the other side, but there are lots and lots of parents like Sophia, who's here, as well as Lisa, who are certified by Mark Ireland, but also Christy's a medium. She connects with kids on the other side all the time. And when I say medium, connecting with our own kids, I don't think necessarily makes you a medium, but it means that you have mediumistic abilities. But I think that people who are actually doing this and connecting with other kids sets people apart. And there are so many of them, just because of the fact that they are open to this. And when their kids start talking to them, there are so many other kids that are there that want to talk as well. So I just want to thank both of you. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us today before we finish this? Or
I have one thing.
okay, yes.
I want to add to what Craig said in regards to suicide, and that is that when you go back to that vibrational chart, one of the things that we can do for any of our loved ones on the other side is all boats rise together. And this is something that they showed me, is that this is one of the reasons why in some of the religion they pray for their others. But when one of the biggest gifts that Dakota told me you can do for your loved ones, especially suicide, is read to them. Because they can still receive the knowledge from this physical plane that is gifted to them through your conversation, through your prayers, or through books. So as a soul is over there, you can liberate them with your thoughts, with your actions, with your vibration, and they will match that. And you can pull them up, you can comfort them, you can ease their pain. This goes for any human that you come in contact with as well. That's why if you start to put out into the field that which you have with your child, it actually starts to follow into any eyes that you look upon. So one of the things that, as you mentioned, that all of us are doing right now with the children on the other side and the parents that are anchored here on earth, is bridging the gap of everlasting life. And we're starting to remember and to reteach that the traditions that have been taught that the afterlife is a real palpable existence. So when you start to put out love, unconditional, and connection to another, which has been lost through COVID and changes upon this planet, you are creating the magnetic field that binds heaven and earth. We all know that we want heaven on earth. And like I always say that the fabric of heaven is made up of the bonds of love that earth creates. So I see them energetically as golden bonds, golden pearlescent bonds through the heart. And when you really love someone and you love them a lot, there's multiple bonds of strings. Those are to our most precious children, to our most beloved soulmates. But when we start doing that with humanity, with each other, and with the souls that may have terminated their life of their own beautiful free will choice, your love to that soul is what nourishes them, protects them. Everything that you have to give, just give it. And you will feel that soul's liberation through your life. And I believe that's what the greats talk about. And there's many of them upon this planet telling the same story. And each one of us have the exact same story. You don't have to write a book. You don't have, and these are all great gifts and tools, but you are the spark. You are the love. You are the love in action. You are the love outside of God itself. And that is relationship. That's relational. And that's what's going on in this planet. The whole story that everybody says once they leave the body is what was created to others. And I believe that's why God created us as perfect, as individual as we are. It's still the whole. We're all the drops in the ocean, all of these, they all mean the same thing. So just reconnect to that. And when you open your field and you start to pull the shoulders back and let the heart frequency vibrate, just let it permeate the world, and just consciously choose, just one day at a time, every day, choose to be your highest self, like vibrate, and watch where you might be tempted to dip, and allow maybe a little bit of staying heart open, because the heart wants to close, and that is exactly the pain a parent feels when the child transitions, is the closing of the heart. So my message is open it, and that's where the miracles are.
I have just one quick story.
Please do.
That triggered a story that I had sessions with Kurt Cobain, and he was explaining to me what he was going through with his suicide. And I asked him at the very end of the sessions when I was talking to him, I said, is there anything you want to tell the people? And he said, Craig, if you can tell them to stop thinking negatively of me, that I was murdered, Courtney Love killed me, that poor guy, he was in pain. He said, if you can just tell them to just hold love for me, think of me in a good light, because it's a heaviness for them on the other side. And it really gelled with me. We can do that here in this planet with everybody.
That's beautiful, and I think that it's so important for all of us to be able to remember to raise our vibration whenever possible. There are so many ways that we can do that, and being able to hear both of you speak about this today has been incredible for us. I also just want to let everyone know that because it's Father's Day, we have put Life to Afterlife, Mom, Can You Hear Me, the book, as a free Kindle download, and it's going to be free today and tomorrow as well. So if you do download it on Amazon, please leave a review if possible. It boosts the book, and every single penny of the proceeds of this book go to helping parents heal, and it allows us to have a greater reach by doing so. I'm excited that there might be another documentary in the works. That's a very exciting thing. And I also just want to say that I appreciate all of you being here today, all of you being here as well. We didn't have time to ask questions here in the audience, and I don't even know if anyone has any questions, but do you guys have time for maybe just a few more minutes? Is that okay?
Sure.
Does anyone have a question for Craig and Julie? If not, that's completely fine as well. I just feel terrible that I didn't ask. Nobody has any questions? If not, that's also okay. But I also want to just let you know that I was very excited to find out that they are here in the valley. So I'm hoping that we're going to be seeing lots more of them. They now live in Apache Junction in a beautiful house that looks out on the Superstition Mountains, which is something that, of course, all of us dream about doing, is looking out on the Superstition Mountains of all places. So we'll be seeing a lot more of them, and I am just so grateful for everything that both of you have done to raise awareness about the afterlife. Oh, we do have one question. Just 1 second. Would you like to come up here? Or do you want to?
No, I sit here.
Okay, let me give you the microphone
I
so that
speak
people
up-
hear.
yeah, I speak up loud enough. I hear sometimes that our loved ones watch us all the time, which at times I don't feel even comfortable with. Maybe I'm not at my best, but is that something that we create a connection if we want to invite them? Or, I mean, I have nothing to hide. It sounds kind of weird, but when you were describing your son, I find I'm strangely enough on a higher spiritual level since my son passed, and I would have never thought that is an addition. So he gave me a dog before he died, and now I have my little therapy dog. That is a gift. And there are other things. I'm a better driver. I told one of the ladies here I was such a chicken to drive, but my son, before he passed, he was in a medical rehab, and I had to go twice on the 101, which scared me before to death. And there are so many things where I say, thank you, Martin. You made me a stronger person. Is that something I imagine?
Who would like to take this? Julie? No? Craig?
No.
So that's part of the knowing, like just listening to your soul, the things that you know that came out into the world is exactly truth. So truth is that easy, like you are a stronger person. They leave an echo or an imprint, and that is what you take and you mold. To me, that's what God is. God is all of it, but definitely the warmth and the strength and the courage and the ascension I do believe that your son gave you those gifts, because I have the same type of gifts myself from Dakota. I have, like, one of the things he told me was I needed boundaries, and I thought, what? And then I saw my life, and I saw where, as most empaths were before, I might have been too boundaryless. And so he's taught me to see myself more strong, more whole. And I wouldn't have been able to see that before, but he's the one who said the word. And that's the amazing thing about them, is they don't have to do much. And one word can unpack like a profound understanding within you.
Yeah, but that helps me, because I think my son wouldn't want me to be so desperate. He would say, Mom, enjoy life and live on. I don't want you now to be lost.
And as far as what you were saying, as far as them being around you all the time, I believe that that's the piece, is the human construct, is time. Like, does that mean that they're seeing me every moment of my watch in my human life? But to them, time is a fraction of an experience. They know how to just be with you. So they're focused on with you rather than the amount of time with you. Where you kind of go, was that 8 hours? Or you're watching me in the shower? Because I would feel Dakota sometimes. I'm like, I'm in the shower and I'm thinking of him. And I'm like, but then I had to realize that it's the thought. It's not necessarily the vulnerability of my human, because that's fear. Like, when you recognize what is actually happening, that was the fear of vulnerability in me. That's just me. That's not Dakota. That was the piece of you being seen. Or when they drop into your thought, you're aware of who you are and what you're doing, but you're also aware of them. So you just realize that it's just the with that they do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So when Julie and I first got together, we were on the phone one time, and all the spirits that hung around with me were banging around in the kitchen and doing all these things. And she goes, "What's with all the noise in your house?" And I go, "It's just the spirits, doing things." And she said, "Well, if we're gonna have a relationship, they gotta go."
I didn't. I just sort of was like,
She's like,
I
"What
like
can they
my
see?"
house quiet. I don't like. I literally thought of a movie, but I didn't say it like that. But I was sort of like,
They know
I
our
don't know if
intimate
I want that
stuff,
many
like-
spirits banging my cupboards.
But Nikola Tesla also told me that when I was communicating with him, doing a session with Nikola Tesla, I said, "Are you with other souls?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I'm having a conversation flat out with my mom right now." I said, "But you're having a conversation with me?" He goes, "Yeah, and I'm also living a life on another place." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So they can totally be with you 100%. Not 20%, 20%, they can be with you 100%.
But not in the shower. So anyway, but I also just really wanted to say that, you know, it's so incredible to be able to talk about this and not worry that people are thinking that we're crazy. And Craig brought up another point that this is about the life to afterlife thing. These kids were banging around in your kitchen, if you remember. You told me that it was really bothering you.
Andy.
Sorry, Andy.
Andy.
Leanne is in Guam right now.
Sunshine?
Yeah, Andy Hall.
Andy Hall. He changed my screen on my phone. I don't know how these kids do this. But I was just like, what is this? So she has a website. She's like, well, you know, you're supposed to be talking about the website.
So they are very insistent and they get things done. And I think that telling, obviously, Julie that she needed boundaries, so they don't just tell you to love everyone and to be kind to everyone and go through your life kind of not thinking about yourself, I guess, is probably the important thing to understand. They want you to live your life firmly and steadfastly, and at the same time in a loving and compassionate way, which I love about these kids. They're just amazing. So anyway, thank you all for being online with us, and thank you everyone for being here as well. And we're going to break into groups. We have Reverend Sue Frederick, who just taught right next door at Unity, who is here today. And I would love to have you come up here and just say hi to the camera so that people can see you. And then we also have Lisa Wilcoxon, who came up, but I'd love for you, maybe we could all just come up here. We have Christy Majors. No, you guys stay here. I'm not telling you to go away. Come on up here. And then obviously, I would also like Sophia Macomb to come up here. So these are all people, and I also have an affiliate leader here from Seattle who's going to come up as well, Beth Newkirk, who I've known from really the beginning of our journey, and she is so wonderful. We have Rick Wilcoxon, who is the videographer for all of our incredible conference movies. So would you like to come up here too, Rick? We can get my husband to take a picture if you want to. Is that okay, Cyril? Tu prends une photo. Anyway, so we're all just going to say hi to, except we're cutting off our heads here, so we don't want to do that. There we go. So we'll take a picture of everyone, and we're going to break into groups after. Just a second. Just 1 second, Cyril. Break into groups after to be able to share.
He's like,
and we have lots of help here. But anyway, thank you all for being here, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Happy Father's Day.
Yes, happy Father's Day to everyone. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And now, you probably are thinking of all the questions you wanted to ask before.
Are you, I did actually think, are you working on anything right now?
No, kidding.
Yes, actually, we're finding the connection with fruit. I know that sounds really insane. It's like, fruit, what? No, fruit is the true photosynthesis from the sun and water, and it clears up a lot of the density of the third dimensional food, which is the standard American diet. It's not quite